Inside the Magic, show number 386 for August 26th, 2012. It is Sunday, August 26, 2012. This is show 386 of Inside the Magic, and as always, I am your host, Ricky Briganti, for another great show packed with Disney and theme park news and a whole lot more fun. And before we get to all of it, I do invite you to visit our website over at InsideTheMagic.net. There you'll find all of our podcasts, videos, photos, news, articles, and plenty more. And if you ever have any news, tips, questions, comments, anything else you want to send in, you can email me at ricky@InsideTheMagic.net, or you can call and leave a message by calling 407-494-4ITM. That's 4486. And now, let's get on with the show. This week's episode of Inside the Magic is brought to you by Magical Travel. Walt Disney World, Florida summer room discounts are available. Plus, when you book your Walt Disney World summer vacation, even though summer's almost over, there's still time to book a great vacation regardless. With Magical Travel, you can receive a free one-day water park ticket for everyone in your traveling party. Certain restrictions apply, so you're going to want to call Magical Travel today at 866-207-8387 or visit them online at magicaltravel.com to receive a free price quote, and be sure to mention Inside the Magic to receive your free Disney gift card for qualifying bookings when you book your Disney vacation with Magical Travel. And of course, thanks very much to listeners and viewers like you and like Jeffrey Beeman this week for your donation. Thanks very much for that, and all of our recurring monthly donation subscribers or anybody clicking through those affiliate links over on the website all supports the show, and I thank you very, very much for all of that. And now, let's get started with our trip around the world. So it's been sort of a medium news week this week. Definitely have some fun things to share, some announcements that came out of nowhere, and actually it's going to be a little bit of a different show this week because following the news and, of course, our usual tip for the week, we will be diving into some listener feedback this week rather than having sort of a main feature as I usually do in the middle of the show. The listener feedback is going to be the main feature itself because, as you've heard over the last few weeks, perhaps even the last month, I've been holding listener feedback for quite some time, and it is simply time to catch up on all of that because I've got so many great questions and comments to respond to from all of you out there. So that's going to be a large portion of this week's show. I've picked, of course, only the best emails and comments and messages to share that I think everybody will enjoy hearing and learning a little bit from as well. So we'll get to that a little bit later, but right now let's get into this week's news, some of which was a surprise. There's starting out here in Orlando at Walt Disney World at the Magic Kingdom. It was announced this week that a new nighttime Cinderella Castle projection show is going to be coming to the Magic Kingdom for the holiday season. It's going to be called Celebrate the Magic, and it is replacing The Magic, The Memories, and You. So The Magic and the Memories and You, which has been running for, over a year now, I believe, it's going to be coming to an end on September 3rd. That's going to be the final night for that show, both out here at Walt Disney World as well as out at Disneyland. So if you're a big fan of that projection show, you're going to want to make sure to catch it sometime between now and September 3rd. The new show, Celebrate the Magic, will include some elements from the current show, The Magic, The Memories, and You, but it will also be combined with new music, a new story, and new special effects. Disney says they are, quote, focusing on our emotional connection to some of Disney's most magical film moments and memorable characters, end quote. Gone from the show will be those photo pass guest photos, which is a good thing. Ever since The Magic, The Memories, and You first debuted, I always said the worst part about the show was seeing all the guest photos up on the, projected on the castle or on It's a Small World out at Disneyland, and it was, kind of interfering with the show, in my opinion, so I'm glad that those photos will be gone in the new show, and now the new show, I should emphasize, will only be at at Walt Disney World. It will only be projected on Cinderella Castle. It will not be on It's a Small World. Out there later this year, It's a Small World Holiday will return at Disneyland. And, of course, there's the holiday sort of projection that they do on It's a Small World, so that will return. And so you Celebrate the Magic, which is the new show, will not be out there. Also, no Cinderella Castle projection show will be displayed out here in the Magic Kingdom during September and October. So worth noting there. But then come November is when Celebrate the Magic will make its debut. Now this week, thinking about new Fantasyland reservations opened as scheduled for the Be Our Guest restaurant, which is officially a grand opening on December 6th, though the first day it will be open for quote-unquote previews for park guests will be November 19th. And this past Monday at 7 a.m. Eastern Time is when the reservation lines opened, and immediately anybody calling in was greeted with busy signals, and it got to the point within the hours that followed where all of the Walt Disney World phone lines were busy or responding back with, your call cannot be completed messages. It was very difficult. So those who got through, many were on hold for hours and hours, but ultimately Disney did work through it all, and many got the reservations that they wanted for Be Our Guest. There was a small concern with those who got through to the automated dining system versus talking to an actual agent because you were supposed to have to use a credit card to secure your reservation for the Be Our Guest restaurant, but the automated system was not asking for that credit card. So Disney, after some confusion, decided that anybody who booked their reservations that day, even without a credit card, they would still be able to hold their reservation, though going forward they do need a credit card to secure it. It was interesting to note that the Be Our Guest restaurant was unavailable for booking on December 5th and 6th, as those dates have been blocked out for grand opening festivities. Now, of course, you can call easily, make your reservation for when it is available. You can even go online to the Walt Disney World website and make your reservation that way. However, it seems like the restaurant has been largely booked up all the way through the end of the year, even a little bit into January. So it's filling up pretty fast. So if you have any interest in dining at Be Our Guest, definitely keep checking. Maybe some spots will open up, or you'll have to perhaps wait until next year. Of course, they'll accept walk-ups as well, and lunchtime you don't need a reservation for at all. So there are many opportunities to dine there, even if you didn't get a reservation. I did get one for opening week. I definitely plan on getting in there as soon as I possibly can, and I'm really looking forward to sampling the French-inspired cuisine and the Beauty and the Beast atmosphere of that restaurant coming up in a couple of months. Now this week, Walt Disney Imagineering released a video that offered a first look inside Enchanted Tales with Belle. Not the whole experience. This is going to be a meet and greet, interactive meet and greet that's going into New Fantasyland, again out here at the Magic Kingdom. But this video showed off one of the most magical effects that they're putting in, and it is a magic mirror effect. Now, I don't want to spoil it for anybody. You can go watch the video. It'll be linked in this week's show notes if you want to see what this magic mirror effect is. Otherwise, you can just wait until it opens a few months from now, along with Be Our Guest and a large portion of New Fantasyland, and I'm sure more and more details will be coming out within the next couple of months as we move closer and closer to the opening of that. Also at the Magic Kingdom, it seems the Country Bear Jamboree in Frontierland has temporarily closed for a bit of a refurbishment, opening in a couple of months, mid-October or so. There are many rumors out there that it's going to be changed, that perhaps parts of it are going to be cut, that they're looking to shorten the show, that, we don't know. Disney hasn't said for sure exactly what's going on with the Country Bears. Could just be regular refurbishment, upkeep, that kind of thing. So we'll have to wait and see a couple of months from now in what form the good old Country Bears will be returning in. Meanwhile, over at the Jungle Cruise at the Magic Kingdom, the Shrunken Ned's Jungle Boats have been completely walled off. These are little remote-controlled boats just outside the exit of the Jungle Cruise, and Disney, again, has not said specifically what's going on there, but many reports are suggesting those boats are being removed, perhaps for something new to be added to the Jungle Cruise in the future. We will wait and see. No confirmation on that yet. And continuing over at the Magic Kingdom, coming up in not too long from now, a little less than a couple of weeks, I suppose, or maybe a couple of weeks away, a new character will be arriving with the Disney Fairies, and that character is Periwinkle, who I believe is supposed to be Tinkerbell's sister or twin or something like that. I don't know. It's part of the Disney Fairies line. September 9th is going to be the first date where you can go out and meet Periwinkle with the Disney Fairies. Now let's turn our attention over to Epcot briefly here, where, of course, previously we were talking about Wi-Fi availability in the theme parks. At Walt Disney World, Magic Kingdom was the first park to roll out free internet access via Wi-Fi, and now apparently Epcot has come online. You can pull up a Disney guest Wi-Fi when you are at Epcot and sign in. Disney has said that they plan to expand this to Hollywood Studios, Animal Kingdom, and Downtown Disney as well. And I've even heard the water parks also by sometime in 2013. Sticking with Epcot here, those of you wondering what's going on over at Test Track, as it's becoming Test Track 2.0, if you will, or Tron Track, as many have called it, because of the concept art that looked like it was going to be very Tron-like. Coming up on August 27th, tomorrow at 1:15 p.m. on the Disney Parks blog, there's going to be a live chat with Imagineer Melissa Jesselnick. You might recognize that name from the interview I had with her a few months ago when Disney was first unveiling the artwork for this new version of Test Track. She's the assistant project manager on this new Test Track, and they say they're going to be sharing something that we haven't seen from what the new Test Track is going to be all about. So check in tomorrow afternoon, again, Monday, August 27th. If you want to look at the live chat, head over to the Disney Parks blog. And, of course, whatever that something is that we don't know about Test Track yet, we'll certainly be reporting on that as well. Now, this week was the big Star Wars Celebration 6 convention here in Orlando. It's the second time Star Wars Celebration has occurred here in Orlando. 2 years ago was the first time for Celebration 5. Disney certainly had a pretty solid presence throughout the 4 days, concluding today at the Orange County Convention Center. On the very first day, Disney had a panel that was the Disney Parks Star Wars Collector panel. And in that, it was scheduled for an hour. It actually ended up only being about half an hour long. Not the most thrilling panel I've ever been to in my life, but there were some fun things that were revealed. It was a group of people from Disney Consumer Products and the design group, a Disney design group, that were there sort of talking about the current products that they have out, as well as ones they were selling right there at Star Wars Celebration 6. And they did make a few announcements about some upcoming products as well. The biggest announcement, the one that was kind of the surprise of the bunch, was they said basically they've been working on, of course, Cars Land for quite some time, and the merchandise surrounding Cars Land, and at some point during that process they decided it would be fun if they combined the worlds of Cars and Star Wars for an upcoming product line. It'll actually be die-cast vehicles and trading pins that will be sort of combining the world of Cars and the world of Star Wars, with characters like Lightning McQueen as Luke Skywalker, Mater as Darth Vader, which of course everybody is now calling Darth Mater, and the Tractor as a Stormtrooper, Sally as Princess Leia, and Luigi and Guido together as C-3PO and R2-D2. And then at the panel they said the sixth one, the transmission got interrupted and they didn't have it for everybody yet, but that they would be announcing what that final Cars crossover character would be today, actually. And they did just that at the convention, and that last one is going to be Fillmore as Yoda. And so they were handing out some collectible cards for each one of those characters. Sometime in the future is when the diecast and the pins will be coming out for those as well. Sticking with crossover products, they announced some more Muppets Star Wars crossovers of the figures that will be coming out, including Uncle Deadly as Emperor Palpatine, and Bean Bunny as Wicket, and Chicken Stormtrooper, and a bunch of others as well. Disney crossovers with Star Wars, more of that's going to be coming as well. A Sarlacc Attack box set with, of course, Mickey and Minnie and etc. as a variety of Star Wars characters. All of that will be in the honor of the 30th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. Some more Star Wars Vinylmation's going to be coming out, including a 9-inch Jabba the Hutt, coming with a 1.5-inch Salacious Crumb, and also it's a 3-inch Admiral Akbar will be coming out. And speaking of Admiral Akbar, the only official Star Wars Celebration 6 bit of merchandise that I purchased, let me turn the music down here for just a second. The only thing I purchased was a plush Admiral Akbar, and this has nothing to do with Disney whatsoever, but it was at the convention and I found it to be fun, and most importantly, he does this.
It's a trap!
yeah, he talks. So, so kind of a fun product there that I had to, I couldn't resist taking home with me. So yeah, a 3-inch Admiral Akbar anyway is going to be Vinylmation that will be coming out. For a more sort of direct Star Wars connection, again in honor of the 30th anniversary of Return of the Jedi, Disney's going to be releasing a posable, articulated latex Salacious B. Crumb figure. It's going to be a limited edition of 1983 in honor of the year Return of the Jedi came out. And then they're also coming out with a thermal detonator hot potato game that lights up and plays sound and all that good stuff. So a lot of fun Star Wars items coming out of the world of Disney in the months to come and moving into 2013. Now, also, Disney just yesterday had a hour-long presentation on Star Tours: The Adventures Continue, and just when you thought you knew everything about the making or the remaking of Star Tours, they came out with all kinds of really interesting and entertaining stories and visuals and even some video clips and concept art, and ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, was there as well as an Imagineer, and they talked for an hour on sort of the making of Star Tours, the new version, and I actually learned quite a bit that I didn't know, despite the fact that we've heard so very, very much about it as it was happening and being created and all of that. So I plan on sharing that pretty soon. It was pretty interesting. There were no announcements made, unfortunately, no Star Wars Land or anything like that, although one fan did get up to the microphone and say, hey, Star Wars Land sounds like a great idea. What would you like to see, asking the Imagineer, what would you like to see if there were such a thing as Star Wars Land? And, of course, he didn't have any announcements to make or anything, but he did say, as a personal preference of his, that he would love to dine at the Cantina. Of course, the famous Star Wars Cantina with the band and all of that. And so, who knows? Take that for what you will. It could just be his own personal opinion, or maybe it is sort of a hinting at something to come. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just completely speculating there. There, of course, been many rumors like that, but no announcements whatsoever. We will simply have to wait and see if any more Star Wars will be coming to the parks ever. Now, turning our attention to Universal Orlando here for just a moment. Of course, many rumors are swirling surrounding the huge amount of activity going on at Universal Studios Florida, all the construction that's happening there, particularly the Mystery Project that's kind of in the middle of the park where they demolished the soundstage, and everybody's saying it's most likely Transformers ride, like they opened in Hollywood recently, that they're quickly building it there. Listener Michael sent me an email noting that next year, summer, pretty much the entire month of July is blocked out for the lowest pass holders, not at Islands of Adventure because of Wizarding World of Harry Potter, but rather at Universal Studios Florida, which is very, very interesting. So whatever that thing may be, whether it's Transformers or something else, likely will be opening just in time for July of next year. Of course, it could open sooner. I would imagine they'd want to get it open by summer, whatever that might be. I would certainly be excited if it is Transformers. Now let's jump coast over to Disneyland, where Disney this week revealed the gingerbread house that'll be the centerpiece of the ballroom in Haunted Mansion Holiday. This is the 12th year of Haunted Mansion Holiday, and this year's gingerbread house is going to be enormous, 9 feet tall. It's going to have a skinny mountain with Jack's house on top, of course, Jack Skellington. Zero is going to be there, the ghost dog, and there will be a terror train, a ghost train, running around it, and plenty of pumpkins and all kinds of good stuff. So definitely always exciting to see a little bit of artwork showing the gingerbread house, and always even more exciting once Haunted Mansion Holiday opens up for the Halloween and Christmas season each year. Here's a little interesting tidbit, and I have no way of confirming or verifying this, but we'll just take it as it is. Somebody who identified themselves as a cast member, anonymous cast member working at Luigi's Flying Tires out at Disney California Adventure in Cars Land, has chimed in over on InsideTheMagic.net with regards to the removal of the beach balls there. Of course, Disney hasn't specifically said why they decided to remove the beach balls from the attraction, other than to say they're working on something else for the future. Well, this particular cast member said that there were some issues with safety and balls being thrown around and people hitting, getting hit on the head, and even somebody having what they said was a quote-unquote concussion. And that was reason enough for Disney to remove the beach balls to better be safe than sorry, really. They said that they are working on increasing the pace of the movement of the tires and considering perhaps providing one huge beach ball to be bounced around rather than lots of sort of big beach balls. But nothing official from Disney yet, so we will see if any of that happens. If it is all true, thanks very much to that anonymous cast member. Now let's turn overseas for a bit of news from parks literally around the world, where we'll start in Tokyo Disneyland. This week, a new attraction opened up. It is called Goofy's Paint and Play House. It is Goofy's house, and when you step in, there is a game you can play where you're basically redecorating the house. There's projections all over the walls, and you use sort of these shooters, kind of similar to Toy Story Mania, to splat various paint and decorations up on the wall and redecorate Goofy's house as you go through. So if you're going to be going to Tokyo, that's something extra for you to experience there. Inside the Magic listener John sent me an email letting me know over at the Shanghai Disney Resort, a design plan came out this week through the Shanghai International Tourism and Resorts zone, and it showed that there will be 2 7-story hotels that will be part of Shanghai Disneyland when that opens at the end of 2015. That was knowledge that was previously not announced by Disney. Apparently, it's simply labeled as Hotel 1 and Hotel 2 on that plan. One of them is at the southern part of this future Disneyland location. The other one, Hotel 2, is to the west. The first one's going to have a waterfront view. The other one's going to be closer to the parking lot. And yeah, so it seems like there's going to be a couple of hotels to go along with Shanghai Disneyland. Meanwhile, over in Paris, Disney apparently is considering buying out the remaining shares of Euro Disney, the French company, Euro Disney SCA, actually the French company that owns the majority of Disneyland Paris. Disney actually only owns 40% of those parks. The French company owns the rest, but apparently there are some strong considerations for Disney to take full ownership over their parks there, but has not happened yet. And there was a bit of sad news in the Disney/Muppet community this week. Jerry Nelson, who has been a puppeteer for Sesame Street and the Muppets for so many years, died this week at the age of 78. Nelson was the first puppeteer to perform Snuffleupagus, a character that I remember growing up with very much. He also famously puppeteered, Count Von Count, as well as Gobo, Fraggle, and many other characters as well. So definitely some sad news to hear about his passing this week. And now let's turn to the world of movies, where Disney this week set a release date for the home version of Brave. That'll be Blu-ray and DVD. It's coming out November 13th, and it's going to include a new short film called The Legend of Mor'du. And final bit of news this week, apparently there are talks internally within Disney, hasn't been announced or confirmed or anything, that perhaps they are looking at remaking or rebooting The Rocketeer. Why Hollywood insists on remaking and rebooting movies from years ago, I don't know. But if it's going to happen, The Rocketeer's not a bad choice. It's still a good film. I watched it not too recently when the Blu-ray came out. Very, very entertaining, but I would love to see sort of a modern spin on that story. I wouldn't want to see the exact same story all again, but to take those characters, or particularly the lead character, and have a whole new adventure, I would be all for that. So hopefully that is true and it ends up being a good film. And so that's it for news from around the world this week. And while I'm sharing things from anonymous cast members, here's a tip for today from a different anonymous cast member. This one writes, if you have young ones, or you're just young at heart, and you want to hear from Goofy and you're staying at a Disney hotel, dial 0 and ask to speak with Goofy. The cast members have Goofy on speed dial, and he is always ready to welcome guests to the resort. So, great tip there for a little extra character fun over the phone while staying at a Disney hotel. Everybody else, send your tips into tips@insidethemagic.net. And now, before we jump into the massive amount of listener feedback that I have this week, let me put in a quick word about Lanyard Lab. This is the place you want to go if you have a business to promote, or perhaps you attend a church, or you go to a school, or really any organization, a convention, something like Star Wars Celebration 6 even, where you need to get your name out there, or even wearing name tags or IDs or credentials around your neck. Custom lanyards is definitely the best way to do that. You can customize your own over at lanyardlab.com. Once you click on anywhere that says get a quote, you can you fill in all your information there, submit your design to us, colors, text, attachments, graphics, whatever it is that you want to send, and we'll email you back with a price quote along with a proof showing you what your lanyards will look like. And if you're happy with all of that, you can simply place your order online or make any changes that you need. And I should note that we did produce the lanyards for the second time for Star Wars Celebration 6, which was great to see so many people walking around with those around their necks, tens of thousands of those. So yeah, check it out over at lanyardlab.com. That's LANYARDLAB.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky. Hi, Ricky.
Hey, Ricky.
Ricky, this is amazing.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Inside the Magic Listener Feedback.
So as I said at the top of the show, here we are at the listener feedback already, only 25 minutes into the show, and that's because I have a crazy amount of emails to share here. I honestly have lost count because I think I counted last week and it was a little over 30, and then I received even more emails this week, so now here we go. I'm just going to launch right into it, and I am not going to stop until every single one of these emails is read and responded to, and everybody is then for the better of it, because you'll all hopefully learn something from all these wonderful questions that I have received. So, without further ado, here we go. Doug wrote in, and I apologize, by the way, actually, before starting this, anybody who has written in, this could be well over a month old at this point, but they are here. So if it took this long, I apologize to get back to you, and maybe some of these will be saying, hey, I'm going to come for a trip in August, and, well, if that is too late, then oh well. Anyway, getting into the emails now. Doug writes, it goes without saying that I'm a fan when it comes to all things Disney. I have drank deeply from the Dole Whip laced Kool-Aid. My wife calls me obsessed, and in all fairness, she's probably not far from the mark. That said, how many more things can Disney do, such as raising ticket prices, cutting evening magic hours, and clamping down on fast pass return times before the ear hat masses rise up? I ponder all this on the cusp of my family's first ever trip on the Dream. Doug, good question. You know, there are a lot of negative things you can certainly sort of focus on as Disney changes this, or, you know, alters that, raises prices, like you said, or, you know, things don't quite go the way that you remember them, that you always have gone with them, and perhaps not the way you want to see them in the future. But you know what? They are running a company. In the end, they do aim to make a profit. They have to please the shareholders, and you know, it's that balancing act between providing a great guest experience and making it a wonderful place to be. Talking about the theme parks, of course, versus making a buck. And it is tough to have to find that balance. Sometimes they skew too far in one direction and they're not doing as well financially, but are very successful with guest happiness. Other times they skew in the other direction, where they are doing very well financially, but people are kind of annoyed, like it sounds like you are. And you got to find that middle ground. So to answer your question directly, I don't think anyone's ever going to rise up and say, forget it, we're boycotting Disney. Ticket prices are simply too high. Although when those one-day tickets reach $100 a day, that's going to be sort of that one of those breaking points, I think. But no, I don't think the fans are going to ever completely boycott the parks and say, forget it, we're going to Universal, we're going to SeaWorld, we're going to Six Flags, or whatever. You know, it's not going to happen. People will continue to voice their frustrations, certainly, and the right place to do that will be guest relations. Write to Disney, you know, call them, let everybody know if you're ever disappointed with something, and certainly, you know, become a shareholder. Go to the shareholders meeting, share your concerns then. You have a chance to ask questions directly with those who are in charge. You know, those are the ways to get things changed. Otherwise, just make your own decision whether you like it or not. You're probably still going to go to the parks. I certainly am. Next email. Steven writes, I'd like to start saying that I love your show. Listen to it every week. Keeps me informed of happenings in the U.S., even though I live halfway around the world. I wanted to ask if you ever considered going to the overseas parks anytime soon. Well, Steven, Yeah. Yes, I am considering going there, and probably not anytime soon. I don't know. I'm obviously so busy all the time with just the parks here in the U.S. There's always things going on here. I would love to jump over to Paris, to Tokyo, to Shanghai when that opens. Certainly to Tokyo when the expansions open up over there, or rather Hong Kong when the expansions open up over there. But I don't have any immediate plans. Stephen continued and said, I plan to go to Walt Disney World next year. We'll go sometime in April. I'm wondering if you have anything to share with us that will be helpful, like what the crowds will be like, what value hotel we should stay in. We plan to stay in one to save money. How long we should visit each park. Are there any special events? What new rides open, etc. Basically, plan your trip for you, right, Stephen? So it's April. You might run into a little bit of spring break crowd there. March, April, depending on exactly when you go, you might hit some high schoolers, college kids, all going on their spring break. So crowd levels can kind of go up a little bit depending on the day and the week. The rest of your questions are kind of tough to answer in general. What value hotel will depend on what group you're traveling with. If it's a large family with several kids, you might want to give Art of Animation a shot because they have the family suites, great decorations, a lot of unique new offerings there. And even by then, the Little Mermaid wing will be open as well with the standard room, so you don't even need to get a suite. So that would be my personal recommendation for a value hotel. But as far as the rest, it's tough to say this many months out. I'm not much of a planner, to be honest. I don't like to look that far ahead at a trip other than kind of deciding, okay, the crowds are probably going to be like this, the weather's probably going to be like this. Beyond that, I just kind of want to just go with it. Have fun regardless of the situation around you. Make your necessary plans and then just realize, hey, I'm at Walt Disney World. I'm going to have a good time no matter what. I think that's what's most important. Robert writes in and says, let me start at the beginning of his email instead of the middle. He writes, thanks so much for your podcast. It's been keeping me entertained while being deployed overseas. Given the slow connection over here, it sometimes takes a couple hours to download one show, but it is worth it and helps to pass the time. I'll be taking my nephew and family to Walt Disney World in December after I get back. It will be his first trip to any of the parks, and I can't wait. Robert, thanks very much for that email. It's wonderful to know that I'm able to keep you entertained overseas. You're certainly doing more important work than I am, and everybody over here thanks you for whatever it is that you are doing over there. It certainly is appreciated every single day, but if we can make it a little bit happier for you while you're there, then I am pleased to hear it. Next up, a rather amusing email from Faye, who writes, referring to the custom D-Tech Me princess dolls. Faye writes, you said, if you could, you would get your face on one of those princess dolls. It begs the question, Ricky, which princess? Yes, Faye, that is indeed a good question. Disney, of course, will not let me put my face on a Disney princess. I am not a girl, nor am I ages 3 to 12, which is the requirement for that new custom princess figurine. But let's just say for some reason they did decide to let me do it. I think just for sheer comedic value, it's going to be this one that's, for any of you watching the video version behind me, Ariel, particularly if she was in her full mermaid attire. That would just be hilarious. Of course, the custom figure's not mermaid Ariel. It's person Ariel, human Ariel in a dress, so that doesn't quite work out, but I still think it would be rather amusing. Ariel, I grew up watching The Little Mermaid, and that's kind of my favorite princess movie, so that's probably why. But honestly, I think it would be equally hilarious if my head was on any of the princess figurines. Aiton, or Aton, writes in and says, when is Disney World getting a new lifelike, realistic, phantasmic dragon that can breathe real fire like you would see on TV? It could have a long tail, large, gigantic wings, arms, and legs. Well, good question. Certainly Disneyland got a much better dragon for their version of Phantasmic, and I would love to see our Phantasmic get some kind of an upgrade like that. But you're asking when, and I don't have an answer for that because it hasn't been talked about or announced or anything. So who knows if that will ever even happen. I would certainly hope so, but who knows. Next up, an email from Nathan, who writes, I wanted to follow up on Skipper Ben's walkthrough of getting to work at the Magic Kingdom. Most cast members can now check out multiple costumes to eliminate the need of going to costume each day. Costuming now has moved across the street from Disney University. And a quick let's see. Whoops, completely lost my place. Yeah, that's it. So anyway, thanks very much for that email. It's good to know that things have moved around a little bit. And, of course, Skipper Men did say in telling his stories of going to costuming and taking the buses and all of that, that it was, a chore for him to have to go out there every single time. But he worked out there, 10 years ago or so. So things certainly can change over time. Next up, an email that I don't seem to have the person's name, but I will go ahead and read it anyway, and whoever you are, I'm sure you will recognize it. I lied. There it is. Steve from London. Steve writes, just discovered your latest edition, show 382. You may have already answered this, but I'm looking to propose to my girlfriend at Disney and want to use your Disney worldly knowledge. I'd like to know where would be the best to propose. Is it best in front of Cinderella Castle, the Tree of Life, Epcot, or Hogwarts in that other park, or when, during a parade, the beginning of the day, during the fireworks? Where's the best to find photographers so that they can record the hopeful yes? Is it best to organize this before, or is the hub fantastically littered with them? Also, where is good to celebrate immediately after? Reasonable, please. We've saved for a year, and we're only staying on iDrive. Steve... one more part from his email. And finally, props, so that I don't get stopped taking the actual ring through Heathrow on the way to Florida. I have to, and then have to pull the ring out and propose to my loved one at customs. Would you be able to suggest somewhere to buy a nice substitute token? Downtown Disney-ish. So, Steve, lots of good questions there. Sounds like you basically want me to plan your proposal for you. And actually, I'm not the right person to do that. However, Disney is great at doing that. You're going to want to call them. Call the Walt Disney World line, ask to speak to, guest relations, or even possibly their wedding planners, and you will find that they have all kinds of sort of magical things that they can do for you. Some, of course, you can pay for. Some of them they will just sort of arrange on their own if you get the right people. You can get, all kinds of interesting things to happen and little magical moments. Certainly, all of your suggestions are great, and I would say if I'm the one doing this, I would say go for whatever sort of connects between you and your soon-to-be fiancé. Don't just do it in front of Cinderella Castle because that's sort of the cliche. Everybody likes to do that. Don't do it. Do it somewhere that you think would be the most memorable for you as a couple, even if that is Hogwarts over at Universal and not at Disney. That would certainly be great if you're both big Harry Potter fans. I think the point is for you to have that great memory and not so much have it be that picture-perfect, ideal postcard moment. It's got to be special for you. Disney certainly can have a PhotoPass photographer standing by. I would imagine if you tell them in advance that you're going to be doing something like that. As for celebrating immediately after, that's hard to say. It depends on where you end up for your proposal and how quickly you want to celebrate immediately. If you want to rush off and celebrate, or if you want to plan something for a dinner that night, there are certainly lots of options all over Walt Disney World to be able to to celebrate with a great, wonderful dinner. Go for those, you said reasonable places that you've saved for a year, but, once in a lifetime, I assume, for something like this, you're going to want to have it be extra special. So look for those really nice restaurants around. And as far as props, if you're not going to use the actual ring, you're not going to bring that with you, you're right. Downtown Disney definitely has some good options for something that you could use in place of a ring that could be, perhaps a little sparkly, maybe a Swarovski crystal or something like that you can find at Downtown Disney that would be a fun sort of tie-in to whatever you decide to propose. I don't know. There's a lot to think about there. I can't plan it for you, but I guarantee if you call up Disney and you ask them those questions, they'll have a lot more options for you. And good luck. Dominic writes in, says, I'm headed to Disneyland in October and was wondering if you have any merchandise that I could show my support of your show. Lanyard, pins, shirts, anything at all. Well, Dominic, I get this question a lot, and I have really been meaning to sort of relaunch an Inside the Magic store for quite some time. I used to have some t-shirts and lanyards and pins and all that kind of stuff, and then it kind of went away for a while. Technically, you can still buy those shirts out there. I think we have a Cafe Press store. I believe it's cafepress.com/InsideTheMagic. But that store, the designs on those shirts are very old, and I haven't really worked on it recently. So no, at the moment I don't have anything specific other than that to offer, but it is kind of on the to-do list for options to add in the future. Bob writes in and says, I'm heading to California to visit Disneyland and California Adventure in a few weeks. Do you know if they are enforcing the ride return on the Fast Passes like they are doing in the Florida parks? I looked online and couldn't find anything. Bob, no, they're not. Good news there. So you can get a Fast Pass in the morning and then at the end of the day come back and use your Fast Pass and you won't have a problem there. Next email is from Caleb, who writes, my wife and I are moving to the St. Petersburg area in August. Being huge Disney fans and frequent the parks as much as we can, we are extremely excited about living so close to all the magic. One of the things we've come to love the most is all the free, amazing entertainment that you can find around the resort. And one of these that I don't think I've heard you mention before is Yeehaw Bob. Amazing rockin' piano show at Port Orleans Resort. It usually runs from 8 to 12 p.m. 4 nights a week in the small lounge area of the resort entrance. It's a show you have to see to believe. I highly recommend it to anyone visiting Disney World as a perfect end to the day. Caleb, you're absolutely right. Yeehaw Bob is very, very entertaining. One excellently talented performer who many, many love, and you're right, I have not really ever talked about him much at all here on the show. Just kind of one of those things, there's so much at Walt Disney World. Can't always get around to talking about absolutely everything, but yes, a great suggestion. If anyone has never gone out there to see him perform, definitely do so. Next email is from Chris, who writes, do you know if Cars Land will be dressed up for the holidays? Chris, not really sure. I have a feeling they will certainly decorate Buena Vista Street, perhaps for Halloween, definitely for Christmas. Cars Land, I've heard, yes, it will be decorated in some capacity for the holidays, as the parks generally are, but to what extent, that I do not know. We'll find out soon enough. Matthew writes in, and he starts his email with, Dear Mr. Briganti. And so I'm going to put out a call right now, not only to Matthew, but to everybody out there. Don't call me Mr. Briganti. Call me Ricky, please. Just like all the Disney cast members everywhere, just have their first name on their name tag, please. Do feel free to call me Ricky. Anyway, Matthew writes, my family and I are coming to Florida from England in mid-September for 3 weeks, and I have a couple of questions. The Halloween season will have started, and my sister has a morbid fear of live horror actors like you would see in a scare maze. Do the characters also wander the parks at Universal and Busch Gardens, and if so, is there a way to avoid them? Secondly, we are staying in a villa in Haines City. The family may want to do different things. Is public transportation any good or non-existent around Florida? And finally, where do you get the great background music for your show? Matthew, to answer your first question, it is difficult to avoid the live characters around the Halloween Horror Nights and Hallow Scream. There are going to be actors throughout the park in various scare zones, even sort of roaming here and there. There are sort of safe areas. If you tend to stick to the sidewalks, you will be more or less, I say more or less, safe from, you can kind of see them from afar, but they won't really come to you too much. They tend to stick to the streets, and they have to leave those areas for people to actually be able to get around sort of unobstructed. So that's my advice. If you really want to see it but not be immersed in it, stay off to the side, and you can watch and you can laugh at other people getting scared without having to get scared yourself or rather your sister. Second question, public transportation, not so great. I mean, yes, it exists. You're going to end up taking a lot of buses. Not the easiest way to get around Florida. So you may want to get a rental car or look into taxis or some of the other shuttle services before hopping on the buses around the area. And as far as the background music, I have acquired the music that you hear on the show from many different sources over the years. A lot of it is no longer commercially available. Disney has made it available in the past on various CDs. They used to have some kiosks in the parks, etc., etc. Many different ways over the years. Of course, I created parktunes.com, a website I don't mention nearly enough here, but I made it just specifically to answer this question. It's where you can get a lot of the still commercially available music that has been heard in Disney parks. You might want to check out that site. You won't find everything there, certainly, but you'll find a lot. So I do recommend that. Next up, email from Joe, who writes, I was a little disappointed when they released the concept art recently for Pete's silly sideshow, there we go, at the fact that it will constantly have the same characters, although I do appreciate the new costumes and theme. I know that I was hoping that it would be a rotating place for some of the more obscure characters to be. This got me thinking about Oswald the Lucky Rabbit and his role in the parks after the success of Epic Mickey and the upcoming Epic Mickey 2. What do you think the future of Oswald is in the Disney company? Do you think Oswald will ever truly be in the parks? If so, how would you use them? Well, Joe, I think the obvious answer to that question is to put them on Buena Vista Street somewhere. Make a meet and greet. In fact, there's some of those stores there kind of repetitive. They're wonderfully decorated, but they don't necessarily need to be there. I would love to see Oswald have a place there somewhere in Buena Vista Street in park form. They already have the Oswald gas station there with a bit of Oswald, the plushes and the merchandise there, and I'd love to see a character meet and greet there. Also, Hollywood Studios, he would certainly fit in very, very well. But, I think he would still fit in, probably not in Pete's Silly Sideshow, but Town Square Theater, most definitely. So I think it would be wonderful to see him in there. I think Disney's sort of testing the waters little by little to see how much Oswald they can get away with before confusing everybody as to wondering who's Oswald, what about Mickey, and that kind of thing. Disney hardcore fans certainly know who Oswald is, but everybody else, the casual visitor to the Disney theme parks, have probably no idea who Oswald is, and so they have to kind of work him into the parks eventually, hopefully. Next email's from Richard, who writes, quick question, what happened with the Pirates of the Caribbean walkthrough attraction that's planned for Hollywood Studios that was published in an online magazine but failed to make the printed version? Richard, it was officially announced, the Legend of Captain Jack Sparrow, I think it's called, and it is still in progress. It just hasn't opened yet. Everybody expects it to open fairly soon, within the next month or two at the most, probably next month sometime, so certainly stay tuned, and whenever it does open over at Hollywood Studios, you'll know about it. Allie writes in and says, I really love your show. It's really fun and entertaining. One of the best ways to stay updated on all the Disney news. I have a question that might be kind of silly about living in Florida. Not sure if the answer to it is really obvious, but thought you'd be the best one to ask. My family might be moving down to Florida soon, and we were wondering about weather during hurricane season. If there are storms, do you ever have to evacuate? If so, where do you go? If you don't have to evacuate that often, do hurricanes bring a lot of damage? And finally, are the homes generally built to withstand the hurricane weather? We would probably be moving somewhere close to Orlando. Allie, great question, particularly with the sort of the first big storm lurking out there in the ocean right now. Isaac is sort of threatening to put a damper on some of the Republican National Convention stuff happening over in Tampa coming up very, very soon. Actually, I don't know if it's ongoing now or tomorrow or whatever it is. Anyway, yes, hurricanes certainly can be a pain, but they don't come along all that often. And when they do, Orlando's a good place to be because we're kind of inland. We're not right on the coast. So unless it's a really massive hurricane, we don't get hit by a huge amount of it. It'll be, big, bad, long, wet thunderstorm, but it won't be quite as devastating for something like a Category 1 or 2 as if you were right on the coast. To answer your questions directly, yes, sometimes they do in a Category 4, Category 5 hurricane, the biggest of them, issue, and even some of the smaller ones, issue mandatory evacuations, meaning that's basically their way of saying get out for your own safety. They don't come by house to house and make sure you're out. You can stay home, of course, if you feel like your house is safe enough to be there, but there are shelters you can go to that they set up all over the state that you can go to ride out the storm if you need to. Yes, homes are generally built to withstand hurricane force winds. It is a part of the code here in Florida. They have to be built that way. But windows are going to blow out. Roofs sometimes lift off, especially older houses, so there are concerns. The good news is they really don't come across all that often. So it's something to be aware of, but not actively concerned about. I've been living in Florida for the majority of my life, and I've only been through one severe hurricane. It was actually almost exactly 20 years ago, 2 days ago, 20 years ago, August 24th of 1992 was Hurricane Andrew. I was in Miami for that. Brutal storm. That was one of the worst storms ever in history, and I'm still here. Made it through. Our house was not too happy. We had months and months of construction and rebuilding and workers and no electricity and no running water and all that kind of stuff, but we made it. We survived and lived to tell the tale. So it happens. That's part of living in Florida. It's worth it. Doesn't happen that often. So good question, Allie. Next up, an email from Kim, who writes, I'm going to Disneyland for the half marathon on September 2nd, departing on the 4th. Is there any chance I will see the Halloween overlay at the Haunted Mansion? Kim, nope. Sorry, won't be quite up and running. Then seems like you'll just miss it by a couple of weeks. Sorry about that. But good luck with the marathon. Next up, an email from Jade from the UK. Writes, just wanted your opinion on something. We are going to Disney World in 2013, and since we only go every few years, we're aiming to go for 18 nights, taking advantage of free dining and discounts. We were wondering when to go. We've always loved the look of Christmas months at the park, but have never been in the fall before. We're thinking of doing November 4th through 22nd, avoiding the last week of November, as we're told it's really busy. Basically, we wanted to know from you whether we will manage to catch the Christmas events, music and decorations in the parks during this time, and roughly what we can expect of the temperatures. Also, if the water parks are a no-go this time of year, is it a time of year that you would recommend? Jade, good questions there. November's a fantastic time to come, particularly early November. The big crowds are non-existent. It's not quite Thanksgiving time yet. Halloween time is over, and so it's a good time to sort of, have a nice, easygoing time in the parks. And if you stay for 18 nights, like you said, you will carry over a bit into the Christmas decorations. They definitely rolled all that out in November, so you will actually watch them sort of little by little put it all up, and you'll start to hear Christmas music, and you'll definitely get into that whole spirit. Plus, don't forget New Fantasyland opening up November 19th, so that'll give you a few days to experience that as well. And yes, you're absolutely right. Thanksgiving week comes, and it will get very, very crowded, so you'll want to leave at that point. Temperatures should be pretty nice, not cold, not hot. November's always a really great time to be here. Water parks, it might be a little bit too cold for those, and on a bright sunny day, I think you can still manage it, but I wouldn't count on spending a lot of time at the water parks at that point. So I think that was the answer, or those are the answers to all your questions. Here's a long email from Christy. I'm not going to read the whole thing. She even apologized in the PS for the length of the email, but I will read an excerpt from it. Christy writes, I discovered your show back in February of this year. I'm a completionist, so I had to go through all the way back to show number 1 and start from there before listening to the new shows. Unlike the recent college student who challenged himself to do this during his break, my sojourn into ITM history took the better part of 6.5 months, but it was worth it. Christy, I did read the rest of your email. I'm not going to read it here, but thanks very much for listening all the way back to show number 1, even if it took you 6.5 months to do it. Hopefully you weren't ready to pull your hairs out from the sound of my voice after half a year of listening to me, but it sounds like you enjoyed it all, and given the rest of your description for Disney trips and attractions, etc., and listening to various sort of memories spawned by certain shows over those years, I'm glad I was able to give you plenty of enjoyment, and now you only have to listen once a week instead of solid for 6.5 months, so congratulations on that. Next up, an email from Brad, who writes, just wanted to say I really enjoyed the conversation with Skipper Ben on show 384. I am a college student hoping to do the Disney College program and internship, so it was interesting to hear some of Ben's stories while he worked there. I look forward to hearing more of his stories on future shows. Brad, great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We'll definitely be welcoming Skipper Ben back to the show very, very soon. Probably not this coming week, but maybe the week after that. I don't know. I haven't really planned that far out, but he's definitely willing and eager to hop back here on the show as the schedule allows. This week, obviously, we're playing a little bit of catch-up, but he'll be back very, very soon. Katie and Rich emailed and said, my wife Katie, I guess this is just Rich emailing and said, my wife Katie and I wanted to share with your listeners our Dine with an Imagineer experience that we had this week at the Brown Derby. The lunch is designed for an intimate group of 10 in the Bamboo Room. The Imagineers take turns hosting a lunch, and this time we were fortunate enough to meet Imagineer Alex Carruthers, the art director for Disney's Hollywood Studios. Lunch lasted approximately 3 hours and was amazing. Alex took the time to share personal stories as well as answer individual questions. The experience was totally worth the money. For $75 each, we received the 3-hour lunch. That price included the tip, a personalized plate signed by Alex, a personalized menu, a picture of the group, and a picture of just the two of us since we were on our honeymoon, and a name badge. Alex also stayed afterwards for pictures and additional questions. We will definitely be doing this again, but just remember to book early because it is only available on select days of the week. Also, on a side note, the staff at the Brown Derby was wonderful. Kitty and Rich, sounds like you had a great time. Wonderful to hear about that. I have not done the Dine with an Imagineer thing just because I kind of talk to Imagineers Imagineers all the time doing what I do. But for those who don't have the opportunity to do that, maybe haven't even been to the D23 Expo, it is a great opportunity to have a sit-down, casual chit-chat with an Imagineer and just sort of ask away any questions you've ever had about working on the theme parks, which is always just fascinating to talk about. And, of course, you get some good food there over the Brown Derby. I have eaten in that bamboo room as well. Great atmosphere. Certainly the servers there are very nice, and it's quite enjoyable. Next email is from John, who writes, I thought I'd contribute to the Walt Disney World Cars Land rumors. About a year and a half ago, Jim Hill reported that Disney was working on plans to add Cars Land to Disney Hollywood Studios as part of a huge expansion project to Pixar Place, except it would be from Cars 2 and would feature downtown Tokyo. Supposedly, Disneyland has a 5-year exclusive deal on Cars Land to help build attendance at California Adventure, so it wouldn't open until at least 2017. John, that's an interesting take on it. I could see, I could see that happening. Sort of a different spin on Cars Land. I'd hate to see them duplicate the exact same thing they have at California Adventure out here, but I could certainly see a different part of the Cars universe being built out here in Florida, sort of working on the same concepts, the same characters, the same detail-rich environment, style of environment, but not the actual same environment, though I don't think that the Tokyo thing would necessarily work. Cars 2 wasn't nearly as successful as the original Cars, but who knows? We'll see. Next up, an email from, Jean Carlos is most likely how you pronounce that, writing, Hey, Ricky, I personally think this has got to be the biggest Halloween Horror Nights question. Why Universal doesn't make a Halloween Horror Nights theme park or movie? Imagine a whole theme park inspired by the horrors of Halloween Horror Nights, or a movie of Jack the Clown. And another thing, I don't know, but lately Universal hasn't done good movies. And more, when I saw Battleship and Snow White and the Huntsman, I say to myself, finally Universal's making good movies like Jurassic Park and Jaws, but they haven't made or announced another movie like those. Interesting comments there. I'm not so sure about a Halloween Horror Nights movie. They've kind of retired Jack the Clown at this point, but I would love to see a more permanent attraction, year-round haunted attraction, but, that may be me and a select few others. There is one in Hollywood, not the most popular attraction there, so, it's kind of fun to have it just come around once a year. Makes it something to look forward to. Next up, an email from John, who writes, I've been thinking about something recently, and I think you might understand why I think Disney is majorly missing the boat. Disney seems to be forgetting about, or in other ways deliberately leaving, what got them here. I have to ignore the Fantasyland expansion, but only because that is driven by princess money. I'm talking about forgetting the spirit that Walt created each week on his TV show. They have expanded into these non-Disney superheroes, and now reportedly an Avatar section of Animal Kingdom. What does Avatar have to do with Disney? Also in the oh-so-subtle dropping of Walt's name from everything, it is Walt Disney Productions, etc., but now it is all just Disney. There are a ton of movies they don't seem to be interested in releasing on DVD. The Disney Channel is anything but, with no sign of anything that Walt actually created. I could go on and on. It is all of this that gets us to go to Walt Disney World. It is the old movies that I'm sharing with my boys and that they love so much. It is this love of what Walt created that I've passed on to my boys, and which they will remember when they are adults and they have their own money to spend. It is not Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Pandora. I don't mean to rant, I just don't know who else I could share this with and who would understand. John, well, you did indeed rant, and it's not completely unjustified. I mean, this is the second email I've shared today about sort of a general disinterest with the direction that Disney is going in, and you just have to look at it, and I don't know, it's one of those hard things. It's great to hold on to the past, and it's great to look at what was created before and what Walt Disney created and enjoy that element of Disney, but at the same time, Disney does have to move on and create their own new place in the world, and whether or not you like it personally, I mean, it's successful somewhere. Disney Channel is very, very popular. You may not be the right audience for that, but the kids who grow up with Disney Channel today are associating those actors, those performers, those characters with the name Disney, much in the same way that the Mouseketeers did years and years ago. Certainly by today's standards, the Mouseketeers would likely be called extremely lame by today's young audiences, whereas sort of our older audiences think today's Disney Channel is extremely lame. So it's kind of all a matter of perspective. Yeah, I agree Walt's name should still be on many things, and it still is in an increasingly amount. I think it is sort of changing back into sort of the nostalgic feel quite a bit. There's a lot of older things being reintroduced. I think Disney did go too far in that direction. But as I said earlier, with the other sort of similar email to this, there's really that balance to be found. You have to invent, you have to create new things moving forward, but also don't forget about the past. So it's a little bit of give and take along the way. Let's see. Now I've been talking for about half an hour, maybe a little bit longer on all this email, and we still have quite a ways to go. So we'll keep on going. I said I'm not going to stop until we finish all the emails. I'm starting to believe maybe that won't be true, but we'll see. Let's just keep going. Sarah writes in and says, my last trip to the studios, I lost my autograph book. I just got off the rock and roller coaster and went to get my autograph book, and found that it was gone. I first went to guest services to report it. Since I just lost it, the woman asked me if I could come back the next day. I told her no, I was going home, and I added that I had put my name and address in it. And within a couple of weeks, I got the pack in the mail. It was my autograph book plus the pen, and they also included a nice letter. So put your name and address in anything that you could lose. Sarah, I probably should have shared that as a tip for today. Definitely a great tip if you're carrying things around the parks and it's something important to you. Putting your name and address on it could be a good thing. You might want to retrieve that at a later date, and if you lose it, then somebody could turn it in, and clearly it works. You got your autograph book back, which is fantastic. Next email is from Sal, who writes, I am a longtime listener of your podcast. Thank you for your attention to detail and reporting your stories, plus the quality of your programs. Question, have you ever compiled the list of your favorite Disney CDs? Sal, great question there. I do get the question a lot, as I did just a little while ago, where do you get your music? But I don't think I've ever actually been asked about your favorite Disney CDs, and there is one that comes to mind. I don't think the set is in print anymore, unfortunately, but a few years ago, there was a wonderful boxed set that was called The Musical History of Disneyland. It was a 6 CD set that included so much great park audio, full ride-throughs of classic attractions, a lot of background music, a lot of sort of experience, ambient recordings, and all of that, sound effects and music and all of that. Great set. If you managed to get a hold of one of those sets, a wonderful addition to any Disney collection. As I said, I don't think it's in print anymore, but of course there's eBay, and I'm sure you could find it online somewhere. Definitely a great set to enjoy. Bridget from California writes in and says, I was just wondering what are your thoughts on Disney's take on birthdays? What they did that year for free admission on your birthday or a gift card for past members. That seemed like the greatest thing ever. Now all they do is give you a button. It doesn't even have to be your birthday. Other than that, they seem to be very strictly business about it, knowing that if you want to go on your birthday, you will spend money. Anyway, do you think they will ever do anything extra for someone on their birthday? Even a few fast passes would make the experience fantastic and feel welcoming. Bridget, most people are honestly very happy to have that button and wear it around all day. In fact, some people don't even want to wear the button because they don't want to let anybody know that it is their birthday. But, if you find the right cast member, they may give you something extra. There's always those magical moments to happen in the parks. When thinking about things like that, you can never expect it. You can never count on it. You always have to just go with the mindset, hey, it's my birthday, I'm going to have a good time. And if anything extra magical happens and you casually mention to cast members and anybody else that it is your birthday, don't anticipate things happening, but if it does happen, it makes it that much more special. I don't see them bringing back the free entry on your birthday again anytime soon. That was a great promotion for sort of a downtime in the economy, but as things are moving forward, probably not going to happen again. Definitely, it was fun at the time, and now, just have fun on your birthday. You can certainly ham it up and tell everybody that your birthday, and eventually you'll probably get, at least a pat on the back and a button. Alicia writes in and says, my kids love to hear Disney characters singing songs, and so do I. With Halloween and Christmas coming up, I was wondering if you or any of the listeners had advice for what seasonal CDs or individual songs that I could buy or download with mostly the characters singing, like Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Goofy, and other well-known characters. Alicia, there are a lot of albums that have been released over time with those characters, and they're often called things like, Disney's Christmas something, or Mickey's Christmas something, and there's always lots and lots of character Christmas songs like that. I certainly have shared many over the years here on the show, and there are many, many more in the coming months as we move into that holiday season that I could be sharing and likely will be sharing. So you can look forward to that, and I'll try to mention any of those CDs as we move along. I don't know how many are currently in print, but certainly searching online, I don't think you'd have a problem finding some of those CDs, particularly for Christmas. Disney has released many of those over the years. Next up is an email from Evan, who writes, I've been listening... Well, it sounds like he may have me confused with somebody else here, but Evan writes, I've been listening ever since the very first episode of Mouse Tunes, and I'm a very big fan. I have a strange question. Does Disney use a black light with housekeeping to ensure the best level of cleanliness? Evan, I was never a part of Mouse Tunes. That was another podcast, I believe. I don't even think that's around anymore. But anyway, black light and housekeeping. Interesting question. I have never heard of Disney running a black light over their hotel rooms to check for cleanliness. Yeah. You stumped me on that one. I've never heard of it. In fact, I've never heard of anybody doing that, but you also wrote in your email that it's a new thing that housekeeping is doing somewhere. So, interesting question. If anyone else out there knows about Disney using that to keep things clean around the hotels, let me know. But no, I haven't heard of that. Tom writes in and says, can you tell me if the Tree of Life and It's Tough to Be a Bug has reopened at Disney's Animal Kingdom? Tom, yes, it didn't really close for very long. I assume you're referring to the brief moment where there was an after-hours issue where a branch fell off of the Tree of Life, and since then they have erected some sort of fencing and some coverings around the pathways there. But yeah, it's open. It's there. It doesn't look quite the same as it always has. There's a bit more sort of covering as you're walking through the paths there, but it's open. You can still enjoy it. And Kathy next writes in and said, I thought I heard something a few weeks ago about the possibility of the Festival of the Lion King being closed sometime in the near future. This is by far my favorite thing at Walt Disney World. I'm planning a trip in May 2013. Could most certainly change the date if the Festival of the Lion King was to be closed then. Have you heard anything about this? And no, I have not heard anything about that. Whoops, they had already moved on to the music there. All right. Anyway, no, I haven't heard anything specific about the Festival of the Lion King being closed. There's certainly talks of Camp Mini Mickey becoming Pandora/Avatar Land, and Festival of the Lion King's in that general area. So I have heard rumors that the Festival of the Lion King will move to a new area of the park, but I can't say when. I can't say if for sure. We'll have to wait for Disney's official announcement on those. I'm actually seeing the end of all of these many, many emails. Let's give it a quick count before I continue here so we know exactly how many more to read here before we reach the end of this very long listener feedback section. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more emails. I think we can make it. Next email is from Becky, who writes, 3 out of the last 4 years I have been lucky enough to have an annual pass to the Disneyland Resort. I usually bring 2 quarters so I can stop by Fortune Red at his home in New Orleans Square. He's one of those fortune tellers in a box that spits out the little 2x3 cards with a unique fortune on the side and facts about a famous pirate on the other. His box is located near the exit of Pirates of the Caribbean and the entrance to the pirate-themed store. About 3 to 5 months ago, his box was there, but it was completely unplugged, and during my last 2 visits, he's been completely gone. Now it's just an empty corner standing opposite a fake ficus tree. Does anyone know where that pirate went? Becky, no, I haven't heard anything about that. I know exactly what you're talking about. I definitely have gotten my own fortunes from that. It was always fun to have the Les Baton Rouge store that had a lot of Nightmare and Haunted Mansion items on one side, and then the next was the Pirates store, and had Pirates fun things like that. And I haven't heard of him disappearing, but over time, those stores have kind of become almost one and the same, and the merchandise that you find here and there hasn't really become quite as unique as it used to be, and it's kind of a generalization of what has been sold there, and it's become a little bit less fun. So I'd hate to hear that particular item in that store has gone away completely. You know, maybe it broke and they just didn't feel like fixing it, or who knows. If anyone knows if that has returned or if it's gone forever, definitely send me an email, and I will let Becky know as well. Next email's from Elizabeth, who writes, my husband and I are planning to attend the D23 Expo next year, and I was wondering what is the best place to stay so we can be near the Expo. Should we stay on Disneyland property or stay off property? This would be our first time going to an Expo and first time at Disneyland. Any advice would be welcome. We love the show and would love to meet you when we are at Disney World sometime. Well, Elizabeth, certainly let me know when you're coming out, and we'll see if we can figure out a time when I will be in the parks at the same time as you. I always, it's unpredictable when I'll be in the parks, but sometimes it works out. But anyway, to answer your questions, D23 Expo, if you're planning on going to the Expo solid for the 3 or 4 days that it is, staying right near the convention center is probably a better bet than staying over by Disneyland, because it is a pretty good gap between the two. You're not going to, if you want to be there at the convention first thing in the morning, then, it's going to be a little bit of a walk or a taxi ride or a shuttle or whatever. It's easier just to get out of your hotel and walk straight over across the street to the convention center. So there's certainly some hotels right around the convention center that you could stay at. And then maybe if you're staying at Disneyland extra, or rather visiting a Disneyland either before or after the Expo, you could even change hotels and get a little closer. Or, it's all in the same general vicinity if you don't mind a 10 or 15 minute walk. But if you really want that convenience, the hotels that are right there on Catella will be a great bet, or even sort of the intersection of Catella and Harbor, a great bet for the convention time. And then a little bit further down, closer to the highway on Harbor, or of course the actual Disneyland Resort hotels would be better for visiting the parks. So there you go. Marissa writes, you probably already know, but Disney has released their Halloween merchandise already for this year, and the Hatbox Ghost is very prominent on all the merchandise. Will he be making a triumphant return? Marissa, I certainly wish that were the case, but no, I think Disney is just once again featuring him on the merchandise as they have many times in recent years. But no, I don't think we're going to see the Hatbox Ghost making his way into the Haunted Mansion again anytime soon, unfortunately. I do like this year's Halloween merchandise, though. Next up, an email from Nicole, who writes, I'm a new listener for the show, thanks to my boyfriend, who got me into listening, and soon after I started to enjoy it. I have a question about the dining plan. This May, my boyfriend, his family, and I are going to Disney World, which would be my first time ever. His family has gone several times, so they know the best parts of the park. There has been some debate in our group for about a month now about getting the dining plan. His family has used it before, but the cost of it has gone up since the last time they've used it, and we're debating if it will save money and give us the peace of mind while getting food in the park, or is it better to not have the plan and bring food in, since we're staying at a Disney resort and we have a kitchen in the room. Also, my boyfriend and I are looking to have a romantic evening or two during our trip after spending our day at the park. We were wondering what activities you would suggest for budget-conscious young couples to do at Disney World. Nicole, great questions there. Dining plan, I'm not a big expert on because I'm a local and I don't buy into those sorts of things because I just eat at home or locally or whatever. In my opinion, even, traveling in general, I don't like to buy into those sorts of things. I don't like being locked into a certain number of meals, certain number of points. Yeah, in the end, it might save you a little bit of money, but I like the freedom of being able to just say, hey, I want to eat here tonight, or I want to eat over there, or I don't want to eat at all right now. I don't want to have to use this and that. With that said, there are many people who love the dining plan, who think it's a huge money saver, a huge headache saver, and best of all, if you can manage to nail one of those free dining plan options, those are up all the time. They're offered, occasionally. And if you can get one of those packages where you can get a free dining plan, that is a no-brainer. You definitely want to go into that. So keep a lookout on that for that. Otherwise, just decide what your schedule is going to be like. If you don't think you're going to be eating a lot, or you don't want to be locked into sort of this and that, maybe not the best for you. As far as romantic activities for a young couple not looking to spend a lot of money, I always just like to say walking around Disney's hotels is great. There are so many lakes you can walk around, little benches on the corner you can just sit and relax and watch people go by, just little areas. Go explore. Even if you're not staying at those hotels, go at night and just go sit somewhere. Go to Port Orleans. It's beautiful there. Go to Grand Floridian. Go to the Coronado Springs and go around the lake there. It's just wonderful just to walk around and sort of enjoy the ambiance and the atmosphere and each other's company while you're at Disney World. You don't have to be, riding rides and eating and all of that. You can just enjoy being there. Next email from Gareth from Canada, who writes, I have enjoyed listening and really only started listening a couple of months before heading to Disneyland in July. Some of your suggestions really helped make the trip an even better one. We only waited in line at Radiator Springs Racers for 70 minutes, including the massive Fast Pass lane. A thoroughly enjoyable ride for the whole family, really liked. On this episode, one of the emails you read spoke out about alcohol in the park, and I would like to give my opinion on that matter. I like to agree to disagree with that email in question. While I find the thought of alcohol at the theme parks wrong, I still think it should be included, but restricted to certain areas. I really enjoyed a good beer at Flo's V8 Cafe with my turkey dinner, a really good meal, by the way, and I feel the beer should be limited to a dining area, although a beer garden would encourage too much drinking. My experiences were that I didn't see anyone overdoing it. I was the only one in my party, wife, 2 kids, age 4 and 9, having a beer, and I certainly didn't overdo it. Another thing I noticed in the park is that the orange writing on the Cars Land Cone Motel, it was night, and maybe I'm old, but it was hard to read. Gareth, I didn't notice the orange writing being hard to read at all. Maybe your eyes are just not acclimated with that much neon all at once. Cars Land is certainly full of it, and good thoughts about alcohol in the parks. I personally don't have a problem with it as long as people don't overdo it. Unfortunately, drinking around the World Showcase, certainly an opportunity for people to overdo it. Certainly at the Food and Wine Festival, it's practically encouraged, and things can get a little bit weird at that point. But you're right. There's no reason for it to not, or for it to be completely removed from the parks as long as people somehow manage to keep themselves under control. Next up is an email from Emily, who writes, a new listener of the show, and I love it. I had a question about Disneyland. Have you ever been on the guided tours at the park? My husband and I are big Disney fans and have been to Disneyland at California Adventure several times, but would like to find a little something new with the tours that they offer. Do you have a suggestion on the best one? Emily, great question. In fact, recently Disney has decided to sort of upgrade their Walk in Walt's Footsteps tour at Disneyland, and I would sounds like I would recommend the new version of that, because that new version it sounds great. You get to go in, peek into Club 33, as well as take a step into Walt's apartment above the firehouse in Town Square. So that alone sounds like a good reason to do that tour. Plus, you get to walk around in all kinds of other parts of the parks you normally wouldn't, and just enjoy in general. So a good tour to go on at Disneyland. Just a couple of emails to go here. Steven writes in and says, I want to start by saying that I am a relatively new fan of your show. I just started watching recently, and now you are my prime source for Disney news, which is hard to come by when you live on the other side of the world. I live in the Philippines and was just wondering if you're ever going to go to the international park so you can give your opinions on the insights of the attractions there. I hope in the future you get to visit Hong Kong and Tokyo, as those are just terrific parks, especially with the Hong Kong expansion going on. Also, my family and I are taking our first ever trip to the United States from late April to early May, and we were wondering if this period is crowded, and also if there's anything you could share with us about what restaurants to go to, what tours should we take, and other things you could recommend to do outside of the park. Stephen, your email is very, very similar to one I read just a little while ago. Yes, international parks eventually on the horizon for me, though probably not in the immediate future. Certainly April to early May, a great time to come out here. You'll find since spring break is over by then, summer vacation hasn't started yet. It's a very, very good time to come. It hasn't quite gotten hot enough to be summer yet, and it's definitely not going to be as crowded as summer, so you should enjoy it then. As far as restaurants and things to do outside of the parks, there are so many options that I couldn't even possibly recommend all of them. Mini golf is certainly a good preference of mine, and as I said just a minute ago, just walking around the hotels is one of my favorite things to do that you don't have to pay any extra for, and there's so many sights to see, and you'll definitely find some great restaurants in those hotels. Maybe you can make a plan in advance, book a reservation at one of the restaurants that sounds good, and then go out there, walk around the hotel for a while, and take it all in, and then have a great dinner also. And finally, this last email shows just how old these emails are. Forever ago, it seems like, we were talking about the concept of Walt Disney being in the Cars universe and what his character would be. And I did receive one more email about that, and email is probably a month old at this point. But John wrote in and said, I just wanted to chime in on the discussion of what kind of car Walt would be in the Cars world. I would have to agree with the other email who suggested an early 60s Lincoln. It has class, was technological, technologically advanced for its time, had a classic look with understated luxury, and just like Walt. Moreover, Walt's favorite president was Abraham Lincoln. Also for a name, Waltire Oilius Disney, or maybe Wilt Disney come to mind, or even a combination. So anyway, yeah, that should about wrap up that topic, and indeed it does wrap up, finally all caught up on listener feedback.
Tomorrow.
So there we have it, a show packed with answers to your questions, your comments, and I always enjoy doing all of that. I just, certainly haven't had enough time to get to respond to all of that in recent weeks, so it's good to be able to have a chance to do that this week. If for some reason now you haven't heard your email read on this show and I didn't respond to you directly via email, go ahead and send it to me again, because it's possible it got lost or since I've gotten so much emails, it could have gotten lost in the shuffle. So I certainly go ahead and fire it off again, and maybe we'll include it on a future show, or I'll just send you an email directly back. So there it is. Coming up next week, we'll jump back and do sort of a regular old show with some fun features. Maybe we'll move into a little bit more from Star Wars Celebration 6. Maybe something else will happen this week that will be just as exciting, or if not more exciting, that we can talk about. Who knows? Always something great to share here on the show. In the meantime, I do want to thank Magical Travel for sponsoring this week's episode of Inside the Magic. You can find out more about their services by visiting magicaltravel.com. Also, check us out over at lanyardlab.com. You can see all the different styles and custom lanyard options that we have available, and request a price quote today to receive a free digital preview of your lanyard design. Also, be sure to visit our website over at InsideTheMagic.net. It is your source for Disney and theme park news. Not only you can check out each week's show listings to get music and all the links associated with each show, but find all of our videos and photos and articles and all that good stuff, and follow us on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. And if you do want to see more from Star Wars Celebration 6, that'll be the place to do it. I'll be posting some more videos, and I've already put up hundreds of photos from that event over the last few days. Going to have a wrap-up article coming up in the next couple of days as well, so check it all out over on the website. So that'll do it for show 386. Thanks very much to all of you for listening and for watching each and every week. And do have a magical week. Bye.
For you and me, so there's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, shining at the end of every day. There's a great, big, beautiful tomorrow, just a dream away.